It's that time again. March is here, the madness is upon us, and it's time to fill out that bracket for March Madness. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Seb Central with me, Sebastian Silva, and it's time to do our March Madness bracket for this year. It's truly been a wild year of college basketball. We've seen former G League players come back and have college eligibility, a mid-major team going undefeated in the regular season. But of course, all of this culminates here in March. 68 teams to choose from, plenty of intriguing matchups, and I want to go through all of them and break it down through my bracket. So let's go. All right, let's get right into it. Starting off in the East bracket, we have Duke versus Siena. I got Duke taking this one. Duke is a team that, obviously, the number one ranked team in the nation. Cameron Boozer has just been unbelievable this year. But there's a couple of the injuries they had. I do have a bit of a concern for them as far as going far, but at this stage, they're definitely going to be taking it. Ohio State versus TCU. I love, honestly, all of these 8 and 9 matchups are so intriguing. Ohio State against TCU. I actually like TCU in this one. It'll be tough to see Bruce Thorn go out in the first round here, but I really like how TCU has done, especially against some of the top teams that they have played this year. Getting wins over teams like Florida and Iowa State. And I think they could potentially give Duke a scare in this second round matchup, but we'll get to that in just a bit. St. John's versus Northern Iowa. First things first, I'm actually quite surprised to see St. John's here as a 5 seed. They've been pretty hard done with this draw, not only them being a 5, but also in this stacked East bracket, as we'll get into more of it later on. But in this matchup against Northern Iowa, I don't know. Northern Iowa is a team that every single time that they've been in March Madness, they always pull something off. And for that reason alone, I really want to go with them as an early upset pick here. But I've been really into what St. John's has done recently. Their win against UConn in the Big East was absolutely huge. Zuby Ejiofor is easily a guy that I could see getting national attention throughout this March Madness, depending on how far St. John's go. He was unbelievable in that Big East championship game, getting 7 blocks and 3 steals. So I'm going to go with St. John's here. I believe in them to get it done here. But I could definitely see Northern Iowa giving them a bit of a scare. Now we got Kansas versus Cal Baptist. Shout out to Cal Baptist for making their first tournament this year. Dominique Daniels, huge guard for them. But I don't really see a world where Kansas loses this one. Now we have Louisville versus South Florida. This is where I'm probably going to end up choosing my first upset here. I have my doubts about Louisville, especially with Mikel Brown Jr. and his status. He's probably not going to come into this game 100%, and we saw earlier this season where when he came back, it took him a bit for him to really get going. But in this stage, Louisville really can't afford that, so I'm actually going with South Florida. They've been one of the hottest teams in the country. Love what they've been doing this year, and I think they're going to get it done here. Michigan State versus North Dakota State. I'm going with Michigan State for that one. UCLA versus UCF. That's another game that's really going to be determined by the health, especially from the UCLA perspective. If Donovan Dent's going to be fully healthy for that one, not too sure. UCF with wins over Kansas, Texas Tech, and BYU throughout the year. I'm actually going to go with UCF. I'm going to take UCF as another upset for this one. And closing things out, I got UConn over Furman. Shout out to Furman, though. Great seeing them back in the tournament. Last time seeing them when they hit that big shot against Virginia. Now on to the west side of the bracket, Arizona against Long Island. Shout out to the Finns. They've been unbelievable watch this year. They have 3 Canadians in their starting lineup, which is great to see, but I got Arizona taking this one. Backed them since that first game against Florida, and they just have not disappointed me this year. Another really good 8-9 matchup here between Villanova and Utah State. Good to see Nova in here back in this stage. It was a weaker year for the Big East, so I will give more of that edge to the Aggies. I think Utah State will end up taking this one. Now we have Wisconsin versus High Point. This is definitely going to be a high-scoring affair between these two teams. Heading into this tournament, Wisconsin was honestly a sneaky pick for me to make potentially a deep run. They've had some really quality wins this year, taking down almost all of the powerhouses in the Big Ten, including this big upset win against Michigan, knocking them off of their undefeated streak. Their 2 close wins with Illinois, as well as beating Purdue and Michigan State. Nick Boyne and John Blackwell being their standouts this year. High Point obviously coming to this. They were a big upset pick last year. I don't see it again, though. I think they could definitely push Wisconsin to the brink, but I think Wisconsin will get it done. Next, we have Arkansas and Hawaii. I'm going with Arkansas on this one. I'm feeling a lot of Darius Acuff here. I'm expecting a big performance from him. He's been absolutely incredible in this recent stretch here, winning Arkansas the SEC tournament. Now we have our first of the first 4 matchups between Texas and NC State. I'm going to take Texas to take that one there. I'm feeling a big Dalen Swain game over there. But as far as them against BYU, I'm going to take BYU. But I think Texas could definitely make this a matchable game. I'm worried about BYU as far as their depth scoring outside of AJ and RW3. I think that's going to be an area where Texas could really take advantage of. But BYU has one of, if not the best scorer in the country right now in AJ Debinsa. And I think him alone could easily be taking BYU to bigger heights than not just a round one win. Gonzaga, Kennesaw State. I'm going to take Gonzaga for that one. Miami versus Missouri. I'm going with the home crowd here. Missouri, I think, is going to get it done. Although I do think Miami are the more well put together team this year with Trey Donaldson leading the way. Missouri having that home advantage in St. Louis is going to play such a huge factor in this one. And they've had some good results over this season, obviously beating Florida earlier on as well. But I think, again, that home crowd is going to play the big advantage for Missouri, and I think they're going to get it done. And to close out the West, I got Purdue over Queens. Shout out to Queens, though, representing Charlotte. A good run for them. Purdue have definitely been a team that has really shown up over these last couple of weeks. That Big Ten tournament was huge for them. Before that, it seemed kind of off the rails for them in that part of Big Ten play, but they really managed to bring it back there. And getting that win over Michigan has given them a huge amount of confidence heading into this tournament. Sliding on over to the south part of the bracket, we have another one of these first four matchups between Prairie View A&M and Lehigh. I'm going to go with Lehigh for that one there, bringing back some of that magic from decades past. But either way, they're not going to be able to do it this time. I think Florida is going to get it done here. Clemson versus Iowa, another very intriguing matchup here. Bennett Sturt's leading the way for this Iowa team. They've been kind of slipping, though, as of late. I like what Clemson's been doing recently, so I think Clemson, they're a team that just always finds a way to show up here in March, and I think they'll show up with a W here against Iowa. Then we got Vanderbilt versus McNeese. As much as I want to pick the Cowboys coming off them being the darlings of March Madness from last year with Amir Khan and them beating Clemson, I think Vanderbilt is a team that's hitting their stride right now. So fun to watch with Tyler Tanner leading the way, so I think they're going to be able to get it done. Now we got Nebraska versus Troy. Two teams searching for, I believe, their first win in the tournament. Nebraska being the only Power 5 team to not have a win in the tournament. But I think this is where it's going to change. Now we got Nebraska versus Troy. Two teams searching for, I believe, their first win in the tournament. Nebraska being the only Power 5 team to not have a win in the tournament. But I think this is where it's going to change. Cornhuskers have been one of the best stories in college basketball this year, opening the season 20-0. And I think they'll be able to get it done finally here and get a win over Troy and get that win off their backs. Now we have North Carolina versus VCU. I'm going to take VCU for this one. Again, North Carolina has been a team that's been hampered by injuries without Caleb Wilson for this last stretch of the season. I think that's going to really do some damage, and I think VCU is the kind of team that can go into March Madness and pull off an upset. On to Illinois versus Penn. Shout out to Penn winning the Ivy League and what was an incredible finish in that championship game. But I really, really like Illinois. They're a team that I've been intrigued by them all year. Keen Wagler leading the way, coming out of nowhere, alongside what could easily be seen as a European super team. But I'm expecting some big things out of Illinois in this tournament. They've been really, really fun this year. One of the top offenses, if not the top offense, heading into this March Madness. And I think they're set for a big run. Now we have St. Mary's against Texas A&M. A&M's cooled down as of late, but they obviously had that really hot start to their SEC. They were on top of that at one point, close to being in that top 25. 5 quad 1 wins throughout the year as well. So I think I'm going to take them here against St. Mary's. And closing it out, Houston against Idaho. I'm going to go with Houston for that one. Lastly, we now have the Midwest bracket. Starting off, we have our another first 4 game, UMBC versus Howard. I'm going with UMBC for that one. Obviously, most known for pulling off the first 16-1 upset against Virginia. That won't be the case this time, though. Michigan is one of the strongest teams that we've seen in quite some time. Best defensive team in the country, and again, another team that is set for a big, big run. They might feel a little bit discouraged coming off their loss against Purdue, but I still think this team's got big, big things ahead of them. 8-9 now, another great 8-9 matchup. Georgia against St. Louis. Georgia being the more battle-tested team here coming off here in the SEC. But I'm feeling Robbie Avila in this one. I think St. Louis is going to get it done. Texas Tech versus Akron. Texas Tech, another one of those teams like a UNC that's been really hampered by injuries, and one in particular obviously being JT Toppin. If it wasn't for that injury, I think Texas Tech would be one of the most feared teams in this tournament. I mean, look at some of these wins that they've gotten this season. Beating Duke in non-conference play, beating BYU before they started to kind of go down. Houston was a very big win. Arizona. But they still have Christian Anderson, who has been one of my favorite players in college basketball this year. Him alone gives the Red Raiders a big chance in this one, but I'm going to go with the upset here, and I'm going to go Akron. I think Akron's going to take that one. Alabama versus Hofstra. Earlier today, I was thinking this is going to be an easy matchup here for Alabama. However, the curveball that's been thrown in this is obviously the news this morning about Aiden Holloway. Who knows about his status coming into that game? And Hofstra is a team that you certainly would not want to look past here into this tournament. It came close game here against UCF. Cruz Davis leading the way. Obviously, LeBaron Filan's going to probably have an even bigger role in this game. And Holloway could be a massive loss, their second leading scorer this year. I'm almost really tempted to go with the Hofstra upset, but I think Alabama will do just enough, and hopefully we can get to see Aiden Holloway out there. And if he is, then I think Alabama will have no issue getting through Hofstra. Now, the last of the first four matchups we have here is Miami of Ohio against SMU. Now, obviously, Miami of Ohio have been one of the top stories this year in college basketball. A undefeated 31-0 regular season. Obviously, they ended up falling in the quarterfinals of the MAC tournament there, but I think that could also be a little bit of an advantage, giving them some of that week off to really recalibrate themselves and get ready for this game. But SMU's got that star power with Boopy Miller, JPJ. I think that alone could really cause Miami some problems. I expect this to be a shoot-off, but I think SMU will be the one to take it. But honestly, either way this matchup goes, I think Tennessee will get it at the bag. Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament leading the way for that team. Now we have Virginia versus Wright State. Again, good shout to Wright State for the run that they made, but I got Virginia taking this one. Virginia's really pulled it together this year. They really took the ACC by storm. The same coach responsible for beating Virginia in the first of two 16-1 upsets with UMBC. Last two matchups down this first round, we have Kentucky versus Santa Clara. It's been a disappointing year for Kentucky, the most expensive team in college basketball, going just 21-13. Weren't too impressive in the SEC this year. Mark Pope struggling to really get things going, building a rhythm with guys coming in and out with injuries. I really want to go with Santa Clara for this one. I'm going to go Santa Clara for this one. And closing it out, Iowa State. I got them over Tennessee State. Joshua Jefferson leading the way for them. Let's take things back to the top here. Second round, Duke TCU. Like I said, I think TCU could really give Duke some problems here in this second round matchup. But the Duke defense is going to be just too strong for them. I think even without some of their key guys, I think Duke's going to be able to get that done. Now, this is a second round matchup I am looking forward to. St. John's against Kansas. Pitino against Self. First time these coaches are going against each other in this stage. They've only gone up against each other once before when Pitino was the coach at Iona. This is their first time against each other as coaches of Power 5 teams. This is where I start to really nitpick these teams as far as their weaknesses go. For Kansas, it's the fact that we don't know which version of them we're going to get. Because as far as what they can do at their best, they're easily a team that can go potentially make a Final Four run. But like I said, you don't really know which version you're going to get from them, especially even from a guy like Darren Peterson. St. John's is definitely going to be the more physical team. That's something that guys like Floyd Badunga is really going to have to cope with. I'm leaning more towards the Johnnies. This is such a nail biter to pick. Again, it all depends on the version we get of Kansas. Do I think they're going to be a team that can get out of their hole and really step up, especially a guy like Darren Peterson? Can they figure it out with him? That's what we really haven't seen it consistently with Kansas, because we've seen them get some really good results this year. Obviously, the win versus Arizona sticks out immediately without Darren Peterson. Again, it's just a really tough one to go with here. I'm going to lead to Kansas. I'm going to lead to Kansas on that one there. But it honestly goes either way. It really goes either way. I could see either one of Johnny's or the Jayhawks really getting it done here. But I'm gonna go Kansas. I'm going to go Kansas for this one. St. John's. It's the same place where they fell last year to Coach Cal. I think they could meet their match here with Kansas if we get the right version of them. I believe we'll get some kind of right version of Kansas, enough to be able to get past St. John's. South Florida versus Michigan State. I think South Florida once again could give another big scare to Michigan State, but I think they'll do just enough to get it done. UCF UConn. Got to go UConn for that one early, getting that done. I got Zona over the Aggies. Wisconsin, Arkansas. Oh my goodness. Like, this is another one. This is another one like St. John's, Kansas. It's so 50-50. I've loved Wisconsin all year, but I've loved Arkansas too. They've really, really hit their stride offensively. It's going to take a lot for them to really contain a guy like Darius Aikoff right now, who's just on another planet. I've loved Wisconsin all year. They've been a team that, again, they've done so well against some of the best teams in the Big Ten. I want to do it, but I know, again, Arkansas, they're a team that's getting hot at the right time, coming off that tournament win. Coach Cal at the helm. I'm gonna go Arkansas. I'm gonna go Arkansas, but I want to back Wisconsin. I really want to back Wisconsin. I really want to back them. I've backed them all year. Arkansas is so good, man. I want to see Arkansas make a good run with Aikoff. I'll stick with the Hawks for that one. That's a tough one. BYU Gonzaga. This is where BYU's run's gonna end. I think Gonzaga takes that one. Missouri Purdue. Purdue will get that one. One of these two games, we'll see Braden Smith get that assists record, which will be huge accomplishment for him as well. Shout out to him. As we go to the South once again, I got Florida taking it over Clemson. Vanderbilt, Nebraska. I think Vanderbilt's going to take that one once again. I think they're another team that's really starting to hit their stride once again later in this season. That sets up a Florida-Vanderbilt rematch there in the Sweet 16. Now we got VCU, Illinois. I'm going to go Illinois, and then A&M, Houston, Texas battle, but Houston takes that. Michigan, St. Louis. I'm going to go Michigan. Bama, Akron. We'll go Bama. Tennessee, Virginia. Initially, I was going to back Tennessee. I'm going to back Virginia. I'm going to back Virginia to really get it done. And likewise, we'll go Iowa State. As of now, we have pretty much almost all the 1 and 4s except for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's the only non-top 4 team that I have going to the Sweet 16. Oh boy. Duke and Kansas. I'm going Duke for that one. Even with shorthand, I think they're just a better team than them. I'm gonna back UConn. I'm gonna back UConn to beat Michigan State. Zona, I got them over Arkansas, and I'm gonna back Purdue over Gonzaga. Florida versus Vanderbilt once again. I think Vanderbilt does it again. I think Vanderbilt's gonna do it again and take down the reigning champions. That leaves us with Illinois and Houston. This is one that I've kind of gone back and forth with as well. Obviously, with Houston, it's a different approach than what we saw in recent years. Guys like Kingston Flemings and Kristen Knack, freshmen, leading the way for them. It's going to be tough, man. Houston's really going to have to find something in them to potentially contain this incredible Illinois team that forces the most turnovers out of anybody versus Houston, who do their very best at controlling the ball. That's a tug-of-war matchup right there, but I think I'm going to back Illinois. I'm going to back Illinois in this one. I know Houston is a team that consistently gets to Final Fours, but I really like Illinois. They're another team that all year I've really liked watching them, and I think they'll have it in them to get it done. I'll take Michigan and Iowa State for that one. Back to the top, we go Duke and UConn. See, this is where I think Duke's health and fatigue could really catch up to them. We saw that in the ACC tournament in the back half of that. Virginia was able to really give it to them because obviously Duke down 2 starters and they were completely out of it throughout that Virginia game, just barely doing enough to get it done. So a team like UConn could really take advantage of that. Hurley at the helm, I think they're going to get it done. I think UConn takes down the Blue Devils. I'm going to back Arizona against Purdue. That leaves us now with Michigan, and we got Vanderbilt, Illinois. That's a really good one. I'm going to go Illinois. I think Illinois as our final 4. We have 2 1s, Arizona, Michigan, UConn, Illinois. This would be so electric, by the way. Illinois, with the game being in Indianapolis, they're going to absolutely turn out for that one. That alone could honestly convince me to put them potentially all the way. I'm going to do it. I think Illinois going to get it done over UConn. Arizona, Michigan. This is basically like the final itself right here with all due respect to Illinois. Arizona, I've backed them all year, and I'm gonna continue to back them. They've had almost a perfect year. Obviously, they've had almost a perfect year. Obviously, the Kansas and Tech losses back to back hurt them, but since then they've rattled off 9 in a row. Again, the opponents that they've beaten this year, beaten Florida, they've beaten UConn, they've beaten Houston, Iowa State twice. They've just ran through it all, and I'm gonna back them once again. And in the final as well, Arizona are gonna go all the way and claim the national title for this year. It'd be great to see them do it. Obviously, their big three of Burries, Pete, and Bradley all getting it done, and Tommy Lloyd leading the way. I got Zona going all the way this year for March Madness. Submit. So there you have it. There is my bracket for March Madness this year. Let me know your thoughts on who you think will take it all this year. Also, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Plenty more content coming from March Madness as well as other things from the sports world. But until then, the madness is here. Enjoy these next couple of weeks, and I'll see you next time.